Alright, so ahoj, jmenuji se Anika, je mi 25 let, ráda kreslím, hrát na kytaru, na piano a taky cestovat. So, as you guys know, I'm partially Czech. My name's Anika, I'm 25 years old, and I like to draw, play piano, guitar, and travel. I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and no, we do not have beaches there. Yes, we are a part of the US, as I've gotten some answers before in my life about that. And I have dual citizenship with the Czech Republic and the US, and I'm a professional swimmer based here in LA. So before we get started, I just wanted to make sure that everyone has something to write with. Real quick, thumbs up if yes. Okay, we'll get to that in a little bit. And then one other thing, I'd assume that you guys all have your phones near you, but if you could pull up a stopwatch for me, that would be awesome. So we're gonna go through just kind of a little game. I'm curious to see how fast your guys' reaction can be. So pull up your stopwatch and go ahead. Let's just go for like 30 seconds. See if you can get it as fast as you possibly can. See how many tenths you can get. So is anyone able to get under 0.2 as of now? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up. Oh no, Riley, not yet. All right, how about 0.15? Anyone? All right, 0.14. Okay, 0.13. 0.12. 0.11. Okay, anyone under 0.1? Okay, so little tricky reaction time, especially for swimmers, and I'm a sprinter, so it's really crucial for me. But I wanted to tell you guys a story before I actually go further into my introduction about what hundredths can do. And so, big question of this story is how, like, what can 100th of a second afford you, and what that could be. So, I'm going to take you guys back to last year, feels like decades ago, but in Bloomington, Indiana in 2019, and I was at a pro series and it was my last chance to qualify for Worlds for the Czech team. So I had to go a certain cut, and to get that cut for the 100 free or the 50 free, I had to go a best time. So I was coming to a meet, I was the only one from my team, and I was trying to go my best time. So was feeling a little lonely and kind of trying to find out, like, how can I push myself to this level when it's just a little harder, because I know I really feed off of having people around me and being part of a community. So my first shot was in the 100 free on a Thursday, made finals, but was still like over a second from what I should be going. I said, okay, I'll time trial it the next day, which for those of you who don't know, that means that you'll pay for to swim that race in between prelims and finals. So time trialed it the next day on a Friday, didn't make it either. And I was really contradicted because I was like, well, I put everything on the line in the moment that mattered and still did not achieve what I had planned my whole summer around. And so I came off of that race thinking, all right, I need to change how I'm going to practice. I'm going to change my meet schedule for the summer. And just kind of like a roller coaster of emotion was going through it. So I had another race on Sunday, the 50 free, short and sweet sprint. It was great, but I knew I'd have to still go best time if I wanted to try and get a cut. So, and I figured at the rate I was swimming right now, it was just a sprint and the time didn't really matter at this point. So just see what I could do, just have fun with it. And again, already in the back of my head, I was trying to rearrange my summer and go through different plans. So when Sunday came, I was so much more relaxed. I warmed up, I was talking with new people that I'd met on deck, and raced prelims, made it back to finals, was feeling pretty confident in how I was approaching my race and focusing on those little details and making sure that even though mentally I hadn't been as happy with my performance, I was still able to put everything together, whatever the circumstance was. So, finals, raced it a little better, went just a tiny bit faster, which in the 50s a win any day, and looked at the clock. I was like, all right, not what I wanted, but back to the drawing board. So I said goodbye to everyone, all to the new friends that I'd met, went back to my Airbnb, made dinner, watched Game of Thrones as I packed up for my evening. Was like, all right, how am I going to approach this next training season? And then these texts started coming in, and teammates were saying, congratulations, I'm excited to see you. And I was so confused. I was like, why are Czech teammates reaching out to me? This makes no sense. So apparently, there's a rule that whenever you're trying to qualify for Worlds or the Olympic Games, if no swimmer makes the A cut, which is the fastest cut, and it's based on the top 16 times from the previous Worlds, that country is allowed to take one swimmer with a B cut, which is slightly slower, or a similar cut that the country, the federation decides on. And turns out I had made that cut in the final of my 50 free by 100th of a second. So I was completely floored. Like the smallest portion of a second had completely shifted my mental state. I had been basing my worth as an athlete on times and if I had made this team. But then I also realized I had relied on months of small, tiny details and working that foundation into everything that I did, and that sense of community to push me past my own thoughts and get me out of my own head. So this 100th later, a few months down the road, not only afforded me the chance to go to Worlds, but it also helped me to get on a relay that I helped qualify for Tokyo, that had it been non-COVID times, would have been amazing. And hopefully we still get to do that next summer. But the point of this is that simple details really do matter. They can decide how you treat yourself and how you treat others and how you decide to show up when you're having a really hard time. So this kind of made me step back and reevaluate. So I do really value details, but what else do I value and where did those traits come from and how do I hang on to that in situations that are really difficult that I have a hard time getting around? So to go back to my intro, yes, from Albuquerque, for me, it was really important to do a lot of different things growing up. I always had a really hard time and was always really scared that people would only see me as an athlete. And so I wanted to make sure that people were aware that I was much more than that. And I think some athletes feel that as well. They get associated with just their sport and they stop being looked at as a full person. So I was involved a lot in art, in piano. I did tennis, volleyball, track and field. And I actually started playing water polo in about 8th grade and got really serious about it junior year of high school. And that kind of led me into thinking, is it possible to maybe chase 2 Olympic dreams into sports? Like, that's not a really common thing. And so I decided to go to San Diego State to do both. And at the time, I was the only woman at the D1 level who was doing water polo and swim. So definitely a challenge. And I really enjoyed it. I really wanted to go after hard things and realize if I didn't try it and if I didn't pay attention to those small little things that could make me that much better, where would I be? So San Diego State, it was a good adventure to have. Things came about that I realized I'm going to have to choose one or the other based on the opportunities available to me. So I went with swimming and I transferred to USC. And at that point, it was hard starting over with a new community. And I realized I can only control myself, my actions. So I'm just going to focus and pour my attention into my sport and my studies. So I continued with my psych degree, and I've really been interested in how social media has been changing how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to others, and the impacts that this has on our relationships. I mean, I'm sure you guys have already seen it, but how, like, where we are now and maybe where we're headed could be very completely different things, but still very interested in that. So, and now currently post grad, I do represent the Czech national team, and I did swim in the International Swimming League. Last year was the first year, which is basically trying to elevate swimming to a year-round audience participation rather than just once every 4 years. And currently looking to have consistent training, fingers crossed, as those of you who have been in sports understand it's a struggle right now, even for pros as well, and to go to Tokyo next summer. So back to that 100th of a second with the details and realizing, how do I hold on to my values while things are kind of hard? And we did this exercise my junior year of college. And Ariana Kukers, who was a world record holder backstroker for the US, she came and talked to us, and she actually had us go through this personal philosophy. And it wasn't until that year I realized I had the concise language to express to others that this is what I stand for, and here's how I can move forward with a team and a community if they also know what I'm about. And I think especially now, it's crucial to know, yes, we're all socially distanced and we can't give each other high fives in practice or be hugging each other when we have a great achievement or having a hard day. But if you can let your teammates know, whoever that may be, whoever's in your corner, here's what I stand for. Let's hold each other accountable to that. If we can have that precise language, I think that's a huge step in feeling more connected and also a little more purposeful in our goals. So now we get to use that pencil and paper. I'm going to have you guys go through and actually do that exercise as well. So there's going to be 7 questions, and the personal philosophy at the end, it should be pretty concise. It should be 25 words or less, and it's kind of summing up who you are, what you stand for. So when you guys go through these questions, just jot down whatever first comes to mind. And I'll give you guys about like 2 to 3 minutes on each of them. But besides that, is everyone ready to go? How are we feeling? Awesome, cool. All right, so question number 1. List your family and friends with core values that you admire. So there's going to be 3 little subsections. So that first little subsection A, write 1 to 2 friends' names and the values and traits that you admire about them. Alrighty, that next subset is just going to be 1 to 2 teachers or mentors. Same idea. Okay, any traits, values that you really admire and would like to emulate. All right, last little subset, 1 to 2 historic figures. Same idea. Alrighty, I'll give you guys about 30 more seconds. If you're ready, just let me know. Alrighty, and don't worry, if you guys aren't getting everything down that you want, that's totally fine. You'll have a chance to kind of go back and put together everything that you have. So just jotting down whatever first comes to mind. All right, so number 2, design your ideal way of living. So just a few quick thoughts. I know that could be a whole conversation of what you want, but what does that look like? How does it feel? Design your ideal way of living. We'll go about another minute. All right. I'm gonna start on to number 3. List situations when you've aligned with this ideal way of living. So give a few moments where you felt like this is how you would want to live, or these are the moments that you would want to have more often. All right, another minute. All right, number 4. Okay, what governs your actions or decisions? What governs your actions or decisions? When you are making a decision, what makes you stop and think? Or what motivates you? Right, got another minute. And also, if that's too slow or too fast for you guys, just let me know and we can adjust that. All right, everyone good so far? Okay, great. All right, number 5. How do you describe yourself at your core? How do you describe yourself at your core? All right, number 6. What matters most to you above all? What matters most to you above all? All right, last question. What do you stand for? Or if you want to think of it otherwise, how would you want others to describe what you stand for? So, what do you stand for? Or how would you want others to describe what you stand for? All right, and if you guys could just give me a thumbs up when you guys are done, that would be awesome so I know. Cool. All right. All right, now you get to put it all together, okay? So you have all your brainstorming lists. So now you get to create your personal philosophy, okay? So 25 words or less, okay? Try to be as concise as possible and really just boil it into really quickly, who are you, okay? Like, what do you stand for? What do you want to put forth and live by? And obviously, as a reminder, this is going to grow with you as you grow. I've done this exercise a couple times, a few years apart, and it's really fascinating to see how not my values have changed, but my priorities and how that I express my values through those priorities has changed. So just want you guys to keep that in mind. This is flexible and this is going to be a process. But right now, where you are, go ahead, write down your personal philosophy. I'll give you guys, let's say, 4 minutes, okay? And obviously, you can come back to this if this isn't enough time. But yeah, feel free to look over what you have and just all compile it. All right. So if that was not enough time for you guys, please feel free, return to it, come back to it, mess with it, experiment with it. But hopefully that is something you guys can take kind of as we're going through COVID and maybe you come along some challenges and you're forgetting why am I doing what I'm doing? I know I've been there. I was there a few months ago. But kind of coming back to this personal philosophy and having it remind you of, okay, this is kind of where I want to point myself to. One other thing I'd recommend you guys do is read this out loud to your friends or your family and have them give you feedback on what words stand out just when you read it naturally. And that'll kind of help you assess, is this really more the core of that sentence, or is this something extraneous that I don't really need? And you can pare that down into something a little more concise. But hopefully that's a good tool for you guys to have. That is all I have on my end. Do you guys have any questions? Also, where's everyone Skyping in from or Zooming in from? Would love to know. Riley, I know you're here in California.
I'm in Florida. I'm in Florida right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I actually had a question. Of course, I have to answer this, but what's your for like motto or philosophy?
It's a good one. Let me pull it out real quick. So I did it junior year the first time, and then I actually did it again when I went to Worlds. And let me find it. My philosophy was I live to create purposeful experiences and a genuine wolf pack through hard work and intentionality. Wolf pack probably needs some explanation. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Abby Wambach by any chance. Yeah. Yeah, so Abby Wambach, she wrote a book, U.S. National Women's Soccer Team, incredible athlete. She's retired now, but she wrote a book, Wolfpack, on kind of the ways that kind of define, to find your team again. Because for her, the transition was really hard coming from a really close-knit women's national team, retiring, and then saying, what do I do now? Like, what fueled me were the people pointing to me on the field and the people that were lifting me up, or when I got to contribute and help out my teammates. So, like, how do we find a team in this big world? So that was kind of where my mind was at the time. But yeah, I think I'd have to do it again maybe in about like 6 months and see where I'm at, especially with COVID. Yeah. Anyone else?
I know I was wondering, so I guess I had like a few questions because I know I've been trying to figure out like what role I want like my sport and like athletics to play, in my future. And one thing that I kind of keep coming back to is, pushing myself to like go into the professional field or something like that, or trying to get there. Um, and I guess when you were kind of on that path, and you're still there, of course, but like what kind of obstacles did you face, and how did you overcome that? And even like mentally, how did you justify, maybe the risk of going into a field that isn't always the most predictable sometimes?
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. Um, lot of obstacles. I would say first off and foremost, I've always been a person, yes, like I do focus in on the details, but I can get stuck in my head very easily. And that was something growing up that I learned really quickly, that community really ties me down and helps me realize, okay, this isn't a big deal. This is just a process, and I have to get out of my own head. So that was a big deal. Confidence was definitely a process that kind of didn't hit until college, and feeling like I belonged and I deserved to be where I was based on putting in the effort. Obviously, there's other factors at play. I mean, swimming in general is a very white sport. So there's other privileges that come with that. And that whole background is something that the swimming world in general has to contend with. But I think a lot of people, I think I hear confidence a lot. The other thing, side note, I coach at Rose Bowl, hence the connection with Riley. So I see a lot of kids struggling with that confidence and struggling with that, do I deserve to be here, or do I, like, how do I make that next step? But I always think a lot. So I think overthinking is a big one. There are definitely a lot of life obstacles as well. I had a lot of people, like in quick succession, year after year, die, and I had a really hard time like figuring out how can I deal with my grief but also perform my best. And then sports psychologists are really helpful with that, but still definitely a process. Yeah, I'd say those are probably the biggest ones. Hopefully that answers. Let me know if that doesn't.
No, yeah, it totally does. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and just, if anybody has any questions, feel free to, like raise your hand or put the question in chat. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you're muted.
Was it always hard to balance your athletic life with your school life and your social life?
That's a good question. So for me, I really prized my academics. I started playing water polo pretty seriously my junior year, and I can tell you that like a lot of my friends from high school, are like, oh yeah, during free periods, like we'd go hang out or we'd play basketball, whatever. I was that kid who like during my free period would go to the library and study because I knew that after I got back from school, I'd go straight from school to swim for 2 hours and then swim to water polo for another 2 hours and get home at 9, eat dinner, and then maybe catch up on whatever homework I didn't do. So I think time management was a huge skill that I learned on pretty quick. I would say it was a little tricky in deciding, maybe I don't get to hang out with my friends who aren't on the same schedule as me. And I mean, I still see that now with postgrad. Like, my roommates are not on the same schedule as I am, and that probably means I'm not going to stay up all the way till 11 to watch a movie with them. But it I think for what I'm aiming for and for what I get out of it too, like the teammates who are in it with you, it's definitely a bond, realizing that, look, we're sacrificing the same things and we get to be with each other and we get to create this relationship that not a lot of other people have. And I think actually a lot of people my age who are realizing, okay, I'm done with, say, collegiate athletics and now I'm going into my first entry level job, they're realizing that relationship is a pretty special one because maybe not everyone in the workplace has that same drive or motivation that your teammates did. So even though there are sacrifices that you have to make to create that relationship and bond, I still think it's worth it. But also I'm pretty biased. Anyone else?
I think I have one more question. I guess because yeah, I like to go to college for my sport, but I also kind of want to think, if it doesn't work out, of course, I'd like to have, like a major or, another idea of a profession that I'd like to go into. And I know you said you got your major in psychology, is that right? Cool. Yeah. So I guess I was wondering how you're able to almost envision like two different lifestyles, if that makes sense, in the sense, like being able to make that choice, like, oh, if this doesn't work out, then I'll, find a job in like for you, like psychology or something like that. Yeah.
That's fair. I think a lot of people struggle with that because they're like, how much do I pour my heart out into this and then suddenly have to make this whole change? And the great thing is that, yes, maybe it's a change of location or it's a change of people, but those same skills you're learning from your sport are going to carry over and make you a very valuable asset. So say, like, obviously communication or working with other people. And it's surprising how many people don't always have those skills that you expect. Things that you've taken for granted, and you've gotten to work with people who also have learned with you what those skills are like. So great news is those skills do carry over. It's a different setting. And I mean, today we have to be adaptable. We have to say, okay, this is a situation that I didn't expect, but I'm going to use what I know for this situation. For me personally, psychology, I'm still thinking about what I want to do. I don't know. I do not have it figured out by what any means. Maybe grad school. As I mentioned, I'm really interested in social media, but also just team dynamics. Like, how do you find your role? How do you find a place in your community? And how do you bring people together? So, not quite sure yet how to make that into a career, but I'd still like to work with people. So.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just saying thank you. Go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, I have a question, I guess, because you're focused so much on building this community. What do you think is the number one thing you're looking for in people when you're building that community?
In people, that's a good question. I would probably say the willingness to be genuine, to listen would probably be my number one. I guess that's two, that's cheating. It's more an ability to be able to say, okay, right now I have my perspective, but I would really love to hear what you have to say. And maybe how do we create something better than what either of us were envisioning? Obviously, that I'm that is idealistic, and people are stubborn and people have their ideas. Like, I'm not perfect by any means, and I know that I do that too, but I think it's a great thing to strive for, and learning that there's so many backgrounds out there. There's so many experiences that you can't even fathom. And it's pretty narrow-minded to think your one way, or like the way that you want to build this utopian little community, is going to work if you have so many people in the world that have fantastic and deep experiences that you don't even know about. So I'd probably say listening is a huge one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good question. I don't have any questions that are coming to mind right now. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to put them in chat, or like raise your hand again. Wait maybe like a few seconds just to see if anybody has any ideas. All right, Vienna, yeah. I mean, if that's it as far as like questions go, you know, of course, interrupt me if anybody does. I would just say thank you so much for taking the time on your weekend to speak to our group. I know it's a little bit smaller today than it usually is, but I'm really happy that everyone was able to join this speaker series today. I know I was very inspired, and I really liked the idea of kind of figuring out your own personal philosophy. And I think I'm gonna take that, you know, throughout my life and kind of think about that. So I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for coming today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you. Just, yeah, thank you. And thanks for the delayed time. It was a little traffic, as it happens in LA. But yeah, it was awesome talking to you. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm sure you guys could probably get my email. There's also my Instagram, which is just my first underscore and then last name. But if you have any questions about anything, and it doesn't even have to be like within the next week, if you guys are going through the college process and thinking about what does that look like for me, or like what are questions that I should be asking or should be thinking about, please let me know. I would love to help with you guys. So
thank you so much. Actually, sorry, one question just kind of popped into my head. Did figuring out kind of your own like personal philosophy, or having that time to reflect, did you find that helpful in like the admissions process for college? I'm not sure if you kind of started doing that in high school, but
yeah, I actually didn't get to do it until like my junior year of college, but I do wish I had it before. I think that'd be really helpful, and it helped me also get my teammates on board and hold me accountable for what I wanted to do. I would say admission wise, it probably may center you a little bit more if you guys are feeling pulled by, man, I have to put this on my like college app so that I look a little more appealing to this college or to that college. And I know it's a lot of like pulling and deciding what to put to make yourself like, I don't want to say to fit into the mold, because obviously like you should present your genuine self. But I do get that I think college admissions nowadays were maybe a little more competitive, a little different than like, say, I don't know, 7 years ago for me. So I would say hopefully it does help. Maybe it grounds you a little bit more of what you want to present to colleges, instead of being pulled apart by what colleges expect of you. But yeah, let me know if that works for you.
I will. Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep it in mind for a while to go now. So, you know, thank you all so much for being here. Next weekend, we're going to have our meeting at 2:00 on Sunday with a Taekwondo master. His name is Master Edwards, and he's a really cool person. He set up some great after-school programs for kids, and has some really cool philosophies similar to Anika's. So thank you all so much for coming today, and I will post the recording on YouTube. I'll put the link in the Instagram as well as the Skype group chat as well. So thank you all so much for coming, and I will see hopefully all of you next week. Thank you so much.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.